Approximately a year and a half ago, I made a rather long clip called Kingdom of Moloch, and it concerned itself mostly with the implanting of RFID chips and SIM cards into people. Now, I may have approached it from an esoteric occult perspective, and that may be too much for some people. But the fact is, these things are occurring and are becoming fashionable. We have to look at the circumstances in real time, in physical applications, as to the actual implanting of RFID chips and SIM cards. So what I will do in this version of Kingdom of Moloch is go through the issues and speak to them in perspectives that people can understand. I am in Sydney, Australia, and most people don't particularly care about God, about their belief in God, or about the end times or Bible prophecy. I am going to go through the mark of the beast issue in a non-biblical way, and hopefully some of the people in Sydney, Australia might, and I say might, get an idea of how precarious the situation is. So, my original Kingdom of Moloch clip is on my YouTube channel, and I will refer to it at the end. I'll put up the URL so you can check it for yourself. But it goes for 1 hour and 45 minutes, which, considering the attention span of the average Sydney sider, might be too much, because they make goldfish look intelligent. But nevertheless, I will continue on, because I believe you have a right to know, and even if the churches cannot be bothered to tell you about these things, I will, and indeed others will. So you can look at the other clips, which are either on a CD you have got your hands on, or on my YouTube channel under the playlist which I've put them all together on, and decide for yourself. It is your right to know, and it is your right to accept or reject anything that I or others have put forward. So, let's look at circumstances in which RFID chips may be implanted. Let's look at the circumstances in which an RFID chip may be applicable. Okay, we have Centrelink. In this, it might be an avenue for the government to say, if you want government money because you are unemployed or on a pension, then we reserve the right to decide how you will be paid. Now, an RFID chip could be used in cases of fraud, which in Centrelink is many. People claiming to be unemployed, searching for jobs all the time. If an RFID chip puts you at home all week and only going out on Friday nights and Saturday nights, then you can be accused of fraud. The same thing can apply if you are claiming Centrelink and actually have a job. If you are continually going to the same place, 5 days a week for periods of 8 to 10 hours at a time, Centrelink can simply claim that you are employed, and therefore you are not they're allowed to have any benefits. It can also apply in cases of disability pensions. So, under the guise of combating fraud, you can be injected with an RFID chip, and indeed your only method of payment may be an RFID chip. The next one on the list, people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and the mentally ill. Now, just like cats and dogs are microchipped in case they get lost, the same argument can be put forward as to Alzheimer's patients, dementia patients, and the mentally ill, who at times may not and usually cannot explain who they are and where they live. And from there we can go to parole, apprehended violence orders, and indeed common prisoners. They can be RFID chipped in order to know their location at any given time. So an argument could be, well, if there's a jailbreak, we can locate the escapees at any given time through the use of an RFID chip. Well, people don't seem to understand that RFID chips are in the same manner of SIM cards, in that their presence will be detected by a mobile phone tower and putting them in a general location from which any search can be commenced. We can also go on to immigration. You want to come, for example, to Australia on a visa. Now, supposedly a student visa, but in most cases, people who come here on student visas engage in work, even though it's against their visa purpose. An RFID chip can put these people at a certain place and location. They may be claiming to be going to university, whereas an RFID chip may place them at a workplace. We also have the issue of voter ID. There are always accusations of fraud in voter ID, in the elections. You know, the current voter ID, which is applicable and indeed legal, is a piece of cardboard which has your name and address on it and nothing else. An RFID chip may be a way to verify one's identity and a way to verify one's vote. So it may get to a stage where if you don't have an RFID chip, your vote will not be counted. And we also have the issue of children. Now, children are subject to getting lost and also being kidnapped by pedophiles. Again, this will help in locating children. So it would be a rather simple method for injecting children with RFID chips. That is immunisation. And unless you have an RFID chip, your child may not be allowed to go to school because their identity cannot be confirmed by the school or the education department at any given time beyond reasonable doubt. And if you choose to homeschool your children, the state can simply claim that there is no homeschooling and thus you are facilitating truancy, which is against the law. While it can be argued that an RFID chip can have positive benefits, as in the case of kidnapped children and Alzheimer's, dementia patients, the mentally ill, who get lost, who get confused, and have no way of verifying who they are, nor have any way to get back to their residence or any care facilities. But we have to understand that governments are not particularly interested in the likes of children and Alzheimer's patients. With the RFID chip, their concern is purely financial. Although there is a degree of control in it as a byproduct, it is purely financial. This is in relation to the likes of bankruptcy, taxation, and general knowledge about what you buy and what you sell, about who you work for. With an RFID chip, they can know everything about you. They can know where you work, how much you are getting paid, how much tax you are paying. So you may be, employed in a position, and let's say for some reason you might claim a deduction as part of your taxes. That would not be enough because, we all submit taxation returns, but the government can argue based on the information it gets from the RFID chip. And there's nothing to guarantee that any information from your RFID chip would be looked at independently. If the RFID chip says you're making $200,000 a year, then legally that might be the case, even though you might have expenses resulting which may deprive you of any actual income regarding the RFID chip. So in that case, what the government says, that's it. It's just decided your bank account would be located in your chip and the government can deduct from it. What a lot of people don't really consider when they are in favour of RFID chips is the situation. There is you and there is your bank. And people think that any relation between your RFID chip and your bank is clear. It's just two parties. But you also have the government, which comes in between. The government provides the facilities. So unless your bank has its own towers, its own cables, and indeed own anything which connects to your RFID chip, it has to go through a state-sanctioned entity. So the government would know what you are buying before you have paid for it. It will know what you are selling before you have paid for it. Because all things have to go through a government facilitated network. So from there, what you believe to be true is not actually fact. When you consider, let me use this as an example. You can, on a mobile phone, decide you want to make a phone call to London. It isn't you punch in a few numbers in your mobile phone and then automatically you get London. What it is, you punch in the numbers, it goes through your telco. And depending on what sort of plan you are on, whether it's prepaid or you get a bill at the end of the month, If it's prepaid and you have no credit, your call goes nowhere. So from there, and you pass, then it goes to a mobile phone tower. So from your mobile phone, you punch in a number, it goes to transmits to the mobile phone tower, and the mobile phone tower connects to the telco. Then, if it's okay, the telco passes it on to its nearest phone tower, and then phone towers relay the signal. So you could be looking at hundreds or thousands of phone towers, unless you're using a satellite phone, in order to make your call. Now, consider how quick it goes through. Sydney to London, punch in a few numbers, you probably wait no more than a minute. So we're talking about some serious hardware here and serious software. So that gives you an idea of what you are up against. So for you to think, well, if I have an RFID chip, how could the government locate me and things like that? Quite easily, actually. It may take a while to put you down to a specific location, but they can locate you and they can know more about you than you like to believe they do. Now, let's look at some of the reasons why this may be possible, and indeed may be acceptable by the general public. Well, it's hip, it's fashionable, it is convenient, and it is indeed wearable. A simple chip in the hand. You know, you could put a Bluetooth earpiece in your ear and simply put your hand up and have a conversation. It may be possible. And people will think this is hip. So it is possible that people will accept this. And with the increase of atheism, or at least apostasy, which I see in Sydney, Australia, as well as other places around the world, there's no reason really to stop it at all. You can consider the convenience. You might want to go to the beach. Well, if you bring your wallet, your keys, your phone, you might leave them on the beach, go for a swim, come back and it's all stolen. But with a chip in your hand, you can jump into the water and everything's okay. It also provides convenience for the likes of the police, for bar and disco club owners to verify people's ages and their identity. There are a lot of reasons why it will be acceptable. And, trying to argue against it may be difficult, especially when you look at the media these days, who are all in favour of things which will take away your freedom, and yet they tout it as being progressive, while at the same time arguing for the freedom of press. This is actually quite psychotic when you think about it. Now, you may ask, what sort of people would actually go for RFID chips, or things like a SIM card implantable into their bodies? Well, offhand, one can easily say Generation Snowflake, who are otherwise known as millennials, usually punks up to the age of 20 or maybe just a bit over. When you look at some of them, especially the women, they are tattooed, they have various implants in their face. You know, it looks like someone's just put fish hooks in their face, you know, in their lips, their eyebrows, their nose, and probably other places I don't want to mention. So, when you look at it, an entire generation can be lost if it hasn't been lost already. And why would they do such a thing? Indoctrination in schools would be a starter. Also, the cult of celebrity. Now, if you're rich and you're on TV, that's all you need these days. Doesn't matter how evil you are, doesn't matter how cracked in the head you are, it's okay because you got money, which is ultimately what all this is about. Now, if we look at the likes of Elon Musk, you know, the progressive types tout him as the great saviour. He was the guy who invented PayPal, or at least had a large controlling influence over it. He's come up with the idea that human beings should have implants in their brains, much like a computer, or rather a chip of some sort. For what purpose? I really don't know. But we are beginning to see, if Elon Musk gets his way, the hive mind. Because, you know, when you look at it, if computers can be implanted in brains and can communicate with each other, much like mobile phone towers, the person who's running the programming can issue orders, and they cannot be contradicted because it would be an overriding order. There is no opposition. There cannot be any opposition. People with chips will just become passive transmitters and nothing else. So Elon Musk is apparently commencing this new project with Google, and part of that would probably include what is known as cloud computing, or everything's on the cloud, dude. And allegedly passports are also contained on the cloud, so you can fly from one country to another. You've got your passport, it can be accepted, then it can be compared through a computer terminal by accessing the cloud. So we are looking at something that is huge, you know, and the quickness of it, as I mentioned before, is astounding. We also should look at where the money is coming from for this research and development in relation to chips and SIM cards. Another entity which has an interest in this is the Rockefeller. Now, the Rockefeller family, billionaires, multi-billionaires, and they have an interest in this as well. So Elon Musk is a billionaire, the Rockefellers are billionaires, so we're looking at a huge amount of money which can be put into this. Where if George Soros gets on board with this, now we're looking at the combination which would most likely, you know, dwarf, you know, entire nations' economies. Just personal holdings would be greater than the GDP of probably half of Africa in this instance. And when you look at it, you know, all those billions of dollars would go a long way. You know, we only have to look at the snowflakes in Germany and Sweden, and we see it is a rewiring of the brain. People just have no place for logic or common sense. People of Germany and Sweden have abandoned that. They've brought in over 1 million so-called refugees who go into their countries, commit welfare fraud, commit crimes against the local people, have engaged in a jihad against the locals, and the people of Germany and Sweden simply shrug their shoulders and think this is normal. You know, those two countries are overrun with snowflakes. But even though it would be easy to point to every Western country at the millennials or snowflakes and say, this is the cause of the problem, the fact is, it's infecting people of all ages. People live by their symbols. They live by a imagination, a fantasy. And this is why in Western countries people are addicted to TV. You know, I've actually encountered people who believe that there's someday they're going to have some sort of sexual relationship with people they see on TV. You know, it is a mass psychosis. You know, the American Indians have a word for this they call wetiko, psychological illness transmitted by psychological means. We might know it as groupthink, herdthink. And when you speak to people individually and say, will you accept an RFID chip? Now most people say, no, I wouldn't do that, mate. Yeah, if you put 20 of these people together, they will answer as a group. Are you going to take an RFID chip? I say, yeah, I can see some benefits to this. Yeah, I'm going to be really cool. You know, really, when you look at it, the West is lost. But I think this will infect all countries, regardless of your race or religion. This will happen. As long as you know about it, you can decide what you can and cannot do. We live in a world that has no absolutes. This is the way that it's become, because people do not make definite decisions. They rely on politicians who, quite frankly, hate them. And thus they revert to groupthink, because they cannot think for themselves. So Hassan of Alamut said, nothing is true, all is permitted. And this is the world we're in today. And this is the reason why people will accept RFID chips. Probably not all at first, but the indoctrination is there. And the millennials, the snowflakes, will go along with it. I mean, you can just go into YouTube and look up snowflakes protesting, and you ask them what are they protesting about, they can't answer you. You know, TV, radio and indeed the internet has been hijacked. We are seeing fake news stories. We're seeing blatant propaganda. You know, I turn on the radio, there's this guy, he says, oh, he's a great financial wizard, he can tell you all about finance. And I'm wondering if this guy is so clued up on a financial basis, he should be a multi-millionaire at the least, and yet he's slumming it on a radio program. Does that add up to you? So there is a serious problem, and indeed it's got to the stage where you cannot believe what you see on TV or on the internet or hear on the radio anymore. And people just accept this as normal. Various experts will no doubt tout that RFID chips and implantable SIM cards are perfect, that they are all you need in order to function in this world. However, there are indeed hackers who are attempting to investigate and enact on flaws within the system, so it's not perfect at all. We have to consider a lot of the byproducts. You might get an RFID chip and think, oh well, life's going to be cruising now. But the fact is, hackers are looking at ways of circumventing established protocols in relation to chips. And this is before they are implanted into the majority of people. There are people who have had RFID chips implanted for whatever reason. You've got some hackers who have implanted chips into their head in order to try and figure out a way to alter or distort information from them and what they carry. You have people who do it, inject themselves with chips just for the hell of it. It is said that the royal family are all microchipped. I presume this is to do in case they are kidnapped. So there is a precedent for this, for injecting chips into people. But we also have to consider the huge amount of Wi-Fi pollution. When you consider mobile phones, Wi-Fi for computers, and all sorts of electronic pollution that must be encompassing this earth, it couldn't be calculated. It is that huge. So, people want to complain. You light up a cigarette on the street and people will claim that you're trying to poison them. But they have no problem with electronic pollution. It's astounding, really. This is the type of logic we are dealing with now. But people don't want to recognise it because all the electronic devices that are circulating are convenient. And this is what it's about. People will adopt things that will inevitably lead to poor health and indeed their death for convenience. Does that make sense to you? And one thing which you can view on my Kingdom of Moloch clip, the one I told you about, which goes for 1 hour and 45 minutes, is the occult factor. Now, if you look at Revelation, in the Bible, it said that no man may buy or sell who does not have the mark of the beast or his name. We don't know the circuitry behind RFID chips or any other chips. Really. It's only what we can immediately observe. And we could be looking at sigils. Now sigils are symbols which are a type of signature of demonic entities. And I covered a fair bit of it on Kingdom of Moloch. So I will put the URL for that clip, and you can view it for yourself. Now some of you may be thinking, why should I believe anything you say? In all honesty, it doesn't worry me, but I believe that you have the right to know. It is your choice, it is your life, and you can take it from there. But I want you to get it drilled into you that these things are occurring, that these things are happening. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether it's convenient for you or not, fact is you're going to have to face it sooner or later. And the way things are going now, I suspect it's going to be sooner rather than later.